It's Tuesday, September 6th. From inside the WTOP newsroom, this is the DMV Download, brought to you by the men and women of Steamfitters Local 602. Get an estimate and learn more at steamfitters-602.org. Today, the world now knows the name Frances Tiafoe after the Hyattsville native upset tennis legend Rafael Nadal at the U.S. Open. WTOP's Dave Johnson tells us how he got here.
His dad happened to get a job on a construction crew. It was working on the Junior Tennis Champion Center. Next thing you know, his son is spending a lot of time there because he's working extra hours to earn money. The next thing you know, we're talking about him this morning as the U.S. Open champion.
And we take a trip to where Tiafoe's tennis career began in Prince George's County. WTOP's John Domen brings us to the College Park Tennis Academy, where his former coach and friends aren't really that surprised that he's made it this far in the U.S. Open.
Nadal has the name, but he's also, close to retirement. He's getting up there in age. Tiafoe's sort of hitting that prime of his career in terms of physicality and maturity, and told him to just go after him.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Luke Garrett. Megan Clardy is off today.
Oh, this is some moment, huh? One of the most liked players in both locker rooms comes up with an historic win against one of the all-time greats, against a man who'd already won 2 majors this year.
In the seconds after beating Rafael Nadal, the Maryland native put his head into his own hands in disbelief as his family watched from the stands. The 24-year-old beat one of the greats Monday night and now has a good chance at winning the entire tournament. Joining us now to tell us how Tiafoe got here is WTOP's Senior Sports Director Dave Johnson. Dave, thanks for being here.
Hey, listen, it's a great story, and it would make a great script, but, it's real. And that's the thing that I think we're trying to wrap our heads around this morning. Frances Tiafoe is the son of immigrants. They came from Sierra Leone in the early 90s. His dad happened to get a job on a construction crew that was working on the Junior Tennis Champion Center right next to the campus of University of Maryland College Park. After the job was completed, he got the job as head custodian. Next thing you know, his son is spending a lot of time there because he's working extra hours to earn money.
Us being around tennis was kind of gets us, getting out of, our neighborhood. My dad kind of being able to watch us. It wasn't anything supposed to be like this.
The next thing you know, we're talking about him this morning as the U.S. Open champion. It truly is a story that you would like to put in a movie, and it's real.
Bring us back to last night's win against Rafael Nadal. What really happened and what gave him the win?
Well, what gave him the win is just he played better than Rafael Nadal. He made big shots. That'll do it. And, Ben Raby, part of our staff, has watched more tennis than I have, and noted that this has been coming for Frances Tiafoe. And we've been following him for better part of 10 years now. And as he has gotten to Wimbledon, and there would always be a point where we'd say, well, he had a nice run, but it is over. And quite frankly, you never know if a player, it's very hard in tennis to crack into that upper echelon, because we then, when we're talking about champions, it becomes a very short list. We get focused on Nadal and Djokovic and so on. And sometimes there's many very talented tennis players who never break through. Well, he certainly has a chance to win it all now. They all have a chance. There's going to be a new U.S. Open champion because Marin Cilic, who won it in 2014, he also lost yesterday. So I think it's a case where Frances Tiafoe also made a comment that I thought was interesting, that as he approached this tournament, he has not gone out to dinner. It's been staying in the hotel, total focus on tennis, delivery meals. He gave a plug to one of the delivery meal services, room
Uber
service.
Eats, right.
Yeah, that type of thing. And that might sound silly, but really it is not. It is showing that, he is now focused on every little detail. And that was the other thing. He was locked in because Nadal, there are many moments in that match where you thought, all right, man, now Nadal is going to
take over,
wrestle or take over, and Tiafoe just came right back at him.
And you talk about that focus. Tennis is a game of millimeters, even maybe smaller increments of measurement when you think about, each play and the positioning. So that focus really is important. Oh, no, there's one shot that Nadal didn't even go for that we all thought, watching, well, that's out. That's a Tiafoe shot that's out. And now they have the technology, and it shows that it probably was a millimeter in. So it's a great sport because it's two
When it's singles, it's two individuals. As they sit in their chair during a changeover or a break, they're now involved in something that could last 5 hours.
Right.
What they do on the court physically is amazing, but what they are able to battle through mentally when you're dealing with that kind of exhaustion, you're dealing with Rafael Nadal on the other side of the court. It really is hard to put into words what kind of discipline that must take. I mean, think about it. Anybody listening to this, can you do something very well at a high level for 5 hours?
Right.
5 hours. I mean, I know after 20 minutes, I'd say, I hit some nice shots, I'm done. It's really incredible what these athletes go through.
And for those unfamiliar with the sport of tennis, Rafael Nadal is a monster. He's been dominant in the game. So take us back to that reaction point when Tiafoe learned that he had won. I've seen the video, and you can just see the emotion explode. He's been focused, he's kept it cool, and then just kind of overwhelms him.
I'm sure somewhere in his honest self, he probably didn't expect to win. Now, I'm saying that, but then great players don't achieve what they achieve without believing they can win every time. So maybe that's an incorrect statement. But as he talked about, all of a sudden he couldn't hear anything, even though there was more than 20,000 people cheering. I
felt like the world stopped. I couldn't hear anything for a minute. I was like, oh my God, like even shaking his hand, I don't even know what I said to him. Like I was just like, it was such a blur, and like I was already tearing, so like I could barely see him, and I was like, let me sit down. But yeah, it was. I've never felt something like that in my life, honestly.
Yeah, the tears were coming. His heart was racing faster than it was when he was playing a match, which is hard to believe is what the physical, grueling match it was with Rafael Nadal. So now you've got a situation where you look at and you see Bradley Beal that was in your box, his favorite player, Washington Wizards player, favorite NBA player. Then speaking of NBA player, LeBron James tweets about you, and that kind of blows his mind.
Bro, I was going crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's my guy. So to see him post that, I was like, do I retweet it as soon as he sent it? I was like, I'm gonna be cool and act like I didn't see it, and then retweet it maybe like 3 hours later.
So it's all very surreal. But again, he didn't win the title. He beat Rafael Nadal, and so that will be the next mental challenge for him to now face off against Andrei Rublev on Wednesday. Who, by the way, they've split. They've played twice within the last year, and each have won. So Rublev, I'm sure, is thinking, well, that's great, Frances Tiafoe, but I know I can beat you. And that's what Tiafoe is going to have to go up against on Wednesday.
I know I'll be watching. Dave, thank you for bringing us Tiafoe's story and really telling us how it all went down yesterday. And after the break, we hear from another local rising tennis star who looks to Tiafoe for advice, but mostly just for goofing around and having fun.
Backed by the experience of its hardworking members, Steamfitters Local 602 is ready to take on your next commercial, heating, cooling, HVAC, or refrigeration project. Steamfitters Local 602 adds value to our community through its partnerships with local contractors and building owners, all while keeping the focus on improving the lives of its members and their families throughout the DMV. For work that's on time and on budget, go to steamfitters-602.org to schedule your next project. That's steamfitters-602.org. Steamfitters Local 602. Changing lives.
Thanks for listening to the DMV Download. If you like this show, give us 5 stars and leave us a review on Apple Podcast.
We love hearing from you guys, and your reviews really do help other listeners find this, our area's only in-depth daily local news podcast.
And thank you for making us a part of your day. As Dave Johnson said, the U.S. Open Championship is within reach for Frances Tiafoe. He's really near the top of the tennis world right now. But his journey to this moment started right here in the DMV. WTOP's John Domen joins us from the Junior Tennis Champion Center now in College Park. This is where Tiafoe developed his game. John, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. It's good to be back again.
So, John, first off, tell us where you are exactly. I know I just said the name, but what is this place like, and how does it fit into Tiafoe's tennis story?
So the wild thing is, like, there are people that have probably driven past here countless times and has no idea just what this place is, if they're not really deep into the game of tennis. I'm right across the street from the ice rink here along Campus Drive, just a little bit east of the University of Maryland, east of Route 1. Yeah, the College Park Airport pretty much next door. But this place has been here for over 20 years. I think if people understand what IMG Academy down in Florida is,
yes,
this is sort of in the same vein, but a lot less in terms of, IMG has pretty much every sport out there, football, basketball, and everything. But it started as just tennis, and that's what this is too for over 20 years now. Just a facility where kids who are really, really good at the sport sort of train to either take that next step into college or professionally. They get academic schooling here as well. Instead of going to their neighborhood school, they get all of that through here. And this is a place that when it opened, 20 something years ago, Tiafoe's dad helped sort of get this place jump started. He stayed on as a maintenance guy. And this is just where he literally grew up coming here.
Wow.
And fell in love with the sport of tennis. And, his coach told me from an early age, he knew that Tiafoe had the ability and just sort of had it if he could sort of just mature and harness it.
Right. I mean, let's go right to, Tiafoe's former coach, Oliver Ackley. What was his reaction to yesterday's upset against none other than Rafael Nadal?
Obviously, there was some pride in that. He had some pride in seeing his player that he still talks to pretty regularly, it sounds like, seeing him pull off a win like that. He's going to be excited. He's going to be happy. He said he FaceTimed with Tiafoe Sunday night, the night before the match.
Wow.
And he told him to just, be aggressive, play physically, that, Nadal has the name, but he's also, close to retirement. He's getting up there in age. Tiafoe's sort of hitting that prime of his career in terms of physicality and maturity, and told him to just go after him. Tiafoe has clearly stayed in touch with a lot of the kids who train here, with his coaches here. Like, he hasn't forgotten about this place. This is still very much part of him.
Right.
And his former coach is still involved. He was here recently.
Francis is like a idol for the whole country. Let's put it that way, because he's humble. He's getting mature now. Now he knows his game. Now he knows what he's supposed to do.
And he still comes here and just works out and practices and still talks to his former coach who helped get him to this level.
Right. I mean, and let's talk about those players who are at this center now. It must be an immense source of inspiration to see one of their own, Tiafoe, make it to the quarterfinals in the U.S. Open.
There are kids here who are 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, who they'll work out with him here. They'll hit the ball with him. They talk about how hard it is to keep up with him, and how their arms hurt after a couple of hours of just, for most people, would probably be easy practice. But obviously, the way he practices is at a whole different level from anybody else here. But that's all they were talking about today when they were in school, and it does sort of serve as some motivation on the court for them to just keep pushing at it and try to take those next steps as well.
And John, you caught up with Robin Montgomery at the center, and she's a rising star in her own right in the tennis world. What was her reaction to Tiafoe's upset, and how does Tiafoe really fit into her story?
Well, she was able to text him yesterday and just tell him that the win was such a great birthday present for her, because she turned 18 yesterday.
He's like an older brother to me, and I've known him since I was very little. And since I've been coming here, as someone who I looked up to.
She's sort of making that transition from a junior amateur to professional herself. Last year, she won the girls' U.S. Open, the singles and the doubles title. And she could be sort of the next promising American tennis star coming right out of here as well. She was practicing here this morning, and she loved talking about Tiafoe off the court.
If anything, we just goof around with each other when we don't get too serious that often, because tennis is a draining sport and everything is always like this, and this. So whenever I hang out with him, we try to make sure that we just have fun and we're just relaxed and yeah.
Clearly, she was just so excited and happy for her friend. And, she talks about just sort of what a funny but also generous guy that he is.
And I like how he involves the crowds, puts jokes on the court, and I think it's good for the sport. And even off the court, he's just a very kind person, and he just likes to have fun.
And how it does sort of how he does sort of guide her as she makes this transition to becoming a professional player too. How he's able to just sort of offer her advice, not even necessarily, on the court coaching, but so much is just how to handle that kind of stuff and what she has to look forward to as she, navigates the waters of, you're an 18-year-old teenager, but you're also, a professional. That's something that a lot of us, I don't think, could comprehend. And, she talks about being able to just sort of lean on him and talk to him and get that sort of advice that is certainly going to be helpful as she gets older.
And we all saw Tiafoe's press conference yesterday after winning and upsetting Rafael Nadal. I mean, he was calm, he was honest, and he seemed to take it well. So it's great to hear that, he's mentoring the next set of tennis winners.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that charisma to him, but deep down, he's still a DMV guy. He's from Hyattsville. He loves the DC sports teams. He's got a little bit of that swag that everybody loves. And some tennis players, they can be really sort of full of themselves and too serious and too kind of diva-like on the court, and that's just not him. He's cool. He goes out there and look, obviously he takes this very seriously. He plays real hard, but he's got that charisma. He's out there to have fun as well, and he wants you to have fun when you're watching him.
Well, we all did last night. John, thank you for bringing us to, where he really developed as a player today. Absolutely. Check out the videos on our social channels, too. We talked to his former coach. You'll see some videos of just the guys talking to him and what they had to say about it. For sure. We'll check those out. Thanks, John. And before we go, we're going to stick on this sports theme here with Jacob Kerr, who's our audio producer here at WTOP. Jacob, we are about to enter fantasy football.
Yes.
It's about that time. I think our selection day is tomorrow.
That's what I'm told.
Well, I have Jacob here because I've never played in a fantasy football league, which is maybe surprising, but, that's just what it is.
I mean, that's kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy. So tell me, I know literally nothing. What do I need to think about when I, sit down for that selection day? Who should I pick in my first few rounds?
Leagues have always been even back when I used to play more regularly, very running back heavy.
Okay.
So that means running backs and wide receivers are very heavily valued in these kind of things.
Got it. So first few picks, I'm trying to pick the best running backs and wide receivers. What about quarterbacks? I feel like those are the main players in football, but they're not as valued in fantasy football?
It's kind of weird that in football it's become so passing heavy, but the way leagues are scored, they tend to just favor running backs and wide receivers more.
Wow. And am I picking a player for literally every single position on the field, or is it only just a few key players?
No. So our league, we have one quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and then a flex, so it can be an extra guy of one of those 3 previous positions.
Okay.
Then we got a defense as well.
So that's it?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, so it's kind of manageable. I could probably create a short list of 20 players and kind of rank them and hopefully get them before other people do.
That's the idea anyway.
Wow.
Especially if you can find guys of good value. I mean, in most leagues, these same guys are just going to go first. I've seen Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey and Cooper Kupp, Jordan Jefferson. Those kind of guys have been high on a lot of people's lists from my looking around. So really, if you end up getting the first pick, who's going to start taking who.
Right.
And you just got to do your studying of, where's a good value guy? Who do I think is going to be good that other people might be overlooking or might not realize that, hey, I think this guy might have a big year this year. So,
well, it sounds like I have a lot of studying to do tonight before selection day tomorrow, and I think we'll just kind of check back in as our fantasy football league, goes on as time goes on.
Yeah, sounds great. I'm going to be up all night. It's like cramming for a test, man.
I know. Wow. Maybe we should Zoom and just have coffee. Just study.
I mean, it's you don't want to be embarrassing and finish last in the league.
It's
You'll
true.
never live that down.
A lot is at stake here.
We have to show our faces here every day.
That's true.
Even though we have faces for radio, people still have to see us here.
Wow. Well, Jacob, thanks for this sobering advice giving. I've got a lot of studying to do.
As do I.
And that'll do it for us today on the DMV Download. We're brought to you by Steamfitters Local 602. Our managing editor is Craig Schwalb, and our music is by Real World. Give us a review and rate our show if you get the chance, and hit that subscribe button when you get the chance. Never miss a show. You can also find us on social media where we post content every day. You can find out more about this podcast at dmvdownload.com. And of course, the DMV Download is a product of WTOP News. Listen on 103.5 FM in the DC area, 107.7 FM in Virginia, 103.9 FM in Frederick, Maryland, online at WTOP.com, and on the WTOP News app. Have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow.